And now, live from RSN Studios, it's Stay Awake with John Thomas Hill. Today's topic, the Revenge of Napster. And now, here's your host, John Thomas Hill. Alright, it's kind of lame for me to introduce myself, but I don't have any real money to actually put into actually hiring somebody to intro myself, so I'll just do it myself. So, alright, the last show we did was sort of a tribute to the bands of the 80s to sort of poke fun at my niece's, shall we say, poor taste in music. She's a One Direction fan. God help us. But it got me to thinking about the music industry as a whole and the fact that it's changed so much in the last 10 or 15 years. And a lot of that change began because of Napster. For those of you who don't know what Napster is, or are too young to remember Napster, Napster basically was the first file exchange service that a lot of people used to exchange music illegally. And it was, at first the music industry ignored it because they didn't think, oh, there's no realistic way that the industry was going to suffer because a few people, a few geeks on the internet were swapping files. Well, when it starts to impact the bottom line, you'll have to pardon me, I needed a cough drop. That's when the music industry takes note, and that's the reason why they shut it down. Because a lot of geeks were exchanging music, and a lot of non-geeks were exchanging music because they found out from their friends who were geeks how to get music for free. Because why pay $15 for a CD when all you want is one or two songs off of it? And those songs necessarily, or might not necessarily be singles or CD singles or what have you. Now, for the longest time, it seemed like the music industry had won because they'd shut down Napster, and pretty much everything that came after that was a lesser imitation. People worried about getting viruses or whatnot from these other file sites that weren't quite as good. And the music industry also sabotaged quite a few by putting up tracks and having where you listen to about the first 15 or 20 seconds and then all of a sudden you got a screeching noise from them. That was a sort of a way of trying to get people to not download these files because, hey, you don't know what you can trust, you know. But they didn't. The music industry wanted you to continue to buy albums because, in their mind, in my opinion, they felt like that if you bought albums, it would continue to justify their existence, because it also meant that artists would have to put out 12 or 15 tracks per album, which means they could potentially get 5 or 6 hit singles from an album, maybe more, maybe less, depends on the artist. But you know, you were forced to buy those out, and the fact of the matter is, not every artist has enough material to do a full album. That's why in a lot of cases artists take years between albums. Not necessarily in the country industry. It seems like every year somebody's releasing a new album. That's because a lot of country songwriters write for artists, whereas in rock and pop, in some cases, not as often as it used to be, but basically people wrote their own stuff, or bands wrote their own stuff. Nowadays, it's not necessarily always the case, you know. A lot of the reason why it takes usually 2 or 3 years is because they don't want to oversaturate the market. You know, Beyonce takes usually about 2 or 3 years between albums. Katy Perry, Pink, Shakira, and such. It's all marketed. And that's what record labels are nowadays. Marketing. They're not about production anymore because not many people buy CDs anymore. Go to your local Walmart. The CD aisles used to be a lot larger. Now they're barely an aisle. And that includes all music. They pretty much have lumped everything together. It used to be rock would have a section, country would have a section, soundtracks would have a section, and whatnot. Now it's all lumped together. Music stores are gone. With rarity, you would find a music store, and that usually it's just LPs, and it's people who have a very. It's basically just for people who are very, very devoted to either LPs or CDs. You know, the Sam Goodies are gone. The other, or if they're not gone, they've changed into all full entertainment stores. But even those are going away. Your local Blockbusters are fading away. Local movie galleries are gone. Why? Because the whole face of watching movies has changed. Redbox has changed it. Why go to a local store to rent a movie for $3 a night when you can go to Redbox and get it out of a machine for $1 a night? Or even better, just stream it on Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Instant Video, or now even Redbox is an app on Xbox, I believe. But music has been a constant battle. Used to be that albums told entire stories. It's not just a collect. Some artists told the entire story from the beginning to the end of for the album. Others basically lumped in songs together. But generally, artists didn't want to necessarily be confined to just 45 minutes, which is how long it was on a cassette tape. Two sides of a cassette tape, 20 on one side, 20 on the other. It's a very business-oriented era. Even now with the CDs in the 80s and 90s, yeah, you could put a little bit more on it, but still, you don't want to put so much on it that you overkill your business. Now, there are no boundaries in the digital era. The only boundaries are the amount of file space you have on your computer, which as time goes on, as computers get bigger and bigger, now a terabyte is normal for a lot of desktops and laptops. It's getting to the point where, you look at the last few years. I mean, used to be people go, you have 160 gigabytes on your computer, 160 gigabytes. My God, that's way too much. I'd never be able to use that. Now you have a terabyte. Why? Because so many people are downloading movies, downloading music, downloading TV seasons to their computers, either burning them or streaming them to their media players. And even that's almost unnecessary anymore now. And music, to a certain extent, most people's music collections are not in a big box of cassette tapes or a big thing of CDs, CD holders and such. But the thing is, nowadays, guess what? It's in a computer. Thousands upon thousands of songs. Now, a lot of people still download their songs to CD just on the off chance that maybe their computer gets wiped out. But with now cloud technology on the internet, you can upload your stuff and it's safe there, or it's as safe as the servers that house the cloud can be. But therein lies another problem for the music industry. If people have this material in perpetuity, how are they going to buy any cassettes or CDs Cassettes wear down, CDs wear down. Vinyl wears down. Digital does not. And not only that, hey, I can send these files to my friend who may or may not have the money to buy an album, or who doesn't really want to buy an album. That's the problem. But here's the thing. It's beneficial to the artist, because think about it. If you're an artist, if you're a musician, where do you make most of your money on an album? Through touring. The music label pays for the album, the publicity and all that. Basically, the artist sees very little actually from the album itself. If you really want to support an artist, go see their shows. Don't just buy their album. Go see them live in concert. Buy their T-shirts. That's how you support an artist. That's why a lot of the hardest working bands and the more successful bands are out on their tours. Now, yeah, there are some very successful bands or artists or whatever who don't have to tour that often because they make their money in other ways, merchandising, endorsements and whatnot. But not every band can do that because they're not as mainstream. But the great thing about the era of iTunes Store and whatnot is that music is much more available, and artists can release their albums and they don't have to necessarily go through a music label anymore. They still do because of the marketing, but does Madonna even really need a music label? All she has to do is get a few people together, make her own little label, and just announce, hey, I'm going to release 8 tracks onto iTunes. You don't even need to make CDs anymore. Just put it out on iTunes or Amazon or both. It's that incredible, the era we live in. It was unthinkable just 10 years ago when iTunes first started. But I thought of it. I said it would be a great idea when Napster finally got busted, that if they had thought about it and put a system out there where you could buy songs for 99 cents, people would swing to it. And I think that's the problem with the Music Industry Association of America, the MIA. Instead of seeing the trend and going with it and shifting the industry toward the era where it is now, where a lot of stuff is done digitally, they try to keep it to the same old thing. And movies, the movie industry is the same problem. For a long time, they wanted you to go to a theater, sit down, watch a movie. 6 months later, it would be released on DVD, and then a year later, you would see it on HBO, Showtime, or Stars, or whatnot. Now, you've noticed that a lot of those timelines are shrinking. Even hit movies, it used to be 6 months, maybe even longer before they released on DVD. Now it's becoming more like 6 months for the hit movies, even sooner for the hit movies in some cases, because they want to capitalize on it. And not only that, they want to get it on Netflix to where they can promote these sequels or the next chapters. And that's important. Let me get something to drink right fast, please. Thank you. The industry is always going to change, especially with the way mobile technology is taking place. I mean, look at your iPhone. Yesterday I got a new iPhone. Well, it's an iPhone 4GS. I didn't get the 5 because, truth be told, I've heard too many bad stories about the 5, and plus it's cheaper. But still, you can do a lot. You can watch Netflix. You can stream from your Gmusic account, or Amazon, or whatnot, or Spotify, or anything like that. And the wonderful thing is, Spotify's free. You just have to find people with the same musical interest as you are. There you go. There you go. It's a wonderful thing. Now, the movie industry wants you to basically still believe in going to movie theaters as the overall experience. But here's the deal. They're having to make the movie theater experience much, much better. Much better than staying at home and watching a movie in the comfort of your own home. That means a lot of movie theaters are having to upgrade their digital technology. The local one we have here is under threat of being closed down by economic realities because the movie industry is forcing all theaters to become digital only. And if you don't have digital technology, you're going to be out of luck. I'm sure this is not the only movie theater in a small town across this country who is similarly threatened, although I won't go into my particular side of the story, or my particular view of the story, I should say. But anyhow, you want to know why 3D's all of a sudden become a big deal? It's because 3D works better on a much bigger screen than just your average home screen at home. 3D TVs haven't really taken off as well as the industry would like. They're still out there, and there's a market for them, but if you haven't heard as much about 3D in the industry of television as you have in the movies. Now, my belief has always been 3D has always been a gimmick. And yeah, it sounds like a good idea, but do you really want things popping out at you? In my opinion, you want depth in the picture. You still want that separation in the picture, but you want to see the depth in the picture. That's the awesome part of 3D, isn't necessarily coming out at you. It's the depth inward that makes it a big deal, in my opinion. So, and besides, 3D is never really going to take off until we get holographic technology to the point where it's actually believable. And with the way things are going, who knows? But the movie industry has to look at the reality that the overall experience is what people go for the movie industry nowadays. It's not just about, oh, let's go to the movie theater and see what's new this week. Because in a lot of cases, people can find it online. It may not be great quality, but hey, they can watch the latest movies that are out right now online, or in some cases before they're even released. It's illegal, but it happens. And it'll continue to happen. So instead of, in my opinion, going after these people, if you're going after somebody that's selling it on the street, thousands upon thousands of copies and making lots and lots of money, yeah, you go after those people. But just some schmuck who's downloading online just for his personal enjoyment, yeah, I don't really want to go after those people too much because that tends to make the industry look greedy. But at the same time, the industry also has to look out for itself. I mean, movies ain't cheap to make. Although with the way technology is getting, you might find out that it's not as expensive as you think. But music, the music industry, and this is the thing, I have a friend who is quite talented at music, but seems to have this belief that the record contract will change his life. It's like hitting the lottery. Here's the problem with a record contract. A, you're tied to a label for a several album deal. B, pretty much it's basically essentially a glorified loan. The record company is making all the money back from you, and you don't really profit until they've gotten their money they've given you plus their cut back. So if you're an act that doesn't do well and you waste your money, guess what? Not only are you've run through your money, but now they own the rights to your music. And yeah, you might get a cut from ASCAP, but it won't be a big cut. However, if you're smart, you'll promote through Facebook, you'll grow yourself organically, start playing a lot of dates locally, get your stuff online on YouTube, and keep copywriting your own stuff. Keep trademarking it, everything under your name. And then, as you build your audience organically, as things grow, then you have the power to make a better deal. If the record labels are fighting over you, then you have the power to make the deal that's beneficial to you, where you can utilize their resources, and if you're smart enough to the game, you can make money off of them, and they're not making money off of you. You understand what I'm saying? And in this digital era, there's not a real need for record albums anymore. It used to be record labels were necessary because A, you had to push the music out to the record stations to get the disc jockeys and program directors to play the music. If they play the music, people listen to it, find out who the band is. They'll go, hey, let's listen to this stuff. And they'll go out of their way to go out and buy an album. And if they buy the album, they'll go out to the concert when it's advertised on that various radio stations. And the radio station may give away the tickets. That's another promotional tool. More people come out. If somebody wins tickets, they may go, hey, let's go. I got some free tickets, but let's go buy some more tickets. Which isn't necessarily the case anymore, because unfortunately the digital era has meant that scalpers have found ways to basically buy these tickets in bulk and sell them back at a hefty profit. Sad to say. There is now legalized scalping in this country. Used to be it's illegal. You could only sell your tickets at face value. Although you make $5 or $10, they're not necessarily off your friend. They're not necessarily going to complain too much. But if you're doing it in bulk out front of the Coliseum or arena or entertainment complex or whatnot, yeah, they're going to say something. But now you got StubHub, you've got these other sites where you buy your tickets for the latest Stones concert. $250 for Stones. No wonder they're cutting their tickets prices. Nobody's going to want to go see a Stones concert for $250 unless you're super rich. It's the freaking Stones, but most people who've seen the Stones have seen them once or twice already. Do you really want to go see them a third time? But that's just me. And this is the thing. You have to be ready, if you're an artist, to understand that you have to build loyalty. You have to get people to where, they could illegally download your stuff and swap it all over the place, but they'll still buy your stuff. They'll go to your concerts. They'll buy your merchandise. As long as you don't merchandise yourself out to crazy. But if it looks a cool-looking T-shirt that doesn't look like it's something that's mass-marketed, people will buy it. If you have different ways to make money, if you're inventive, as long as it doesn't look like you're trying to just throw generic clocks like something off Cafe Press or something like that, you have an opportunity to really market yourself in a way that's still cool and hip and basically is making you some money. The music industry is evolving, and the real pioneers are going to be the ones that decide, hey, we no longer need record labels to promote us. We've got Facebook, we've got Twitter, we've got Instagram, we've got Vine, we've got YouTube. We've got all these different ways of promoting ourselves and getting stuff out there. why in the world would we need a record label? You really don't. Now, it takes a hell of a lot more work, a hell of a lot more blood, sweat, and tears, a lot more rejection you'll be facing. That means you're going to have to send a lot of copies, go to these radio stations and whatnot, trying to beg and plead them to play your music. But hey, there's a lot more opportunity out there. You know, there are a lot of podcasts and such, or even develop your own podcast. Get some bands together, your friends' bands together, and develop your own podcast and push your own music. I mean, it's the medium is changing constantly. And for me, you know, it's amazing that people don't understand that they can make a ton of money off this without having to just sign with MCA or any other record label there is. Because, hey, why should I have to sign with a record label when I can just do it all myself? It means a hell of a lot more hard work. You know, and basically doing what these seasoned professionals would be doing. But guess what? If you do it right and you have a lot of hard work and put a lot of elbow grease and whatnot into it, then the record labels come to you. And you're savvy enough to know what works and what doesn't. And you can make, and yeah, they'll think you're a bitch for you know, how dare you say what works or what doesn't. But guess what? You're not a bitch. You're smart. You're savvy. You know what works. You know what your fans want because you're in touch with your fans. And that's the key, folks, is being in touch with your fans. And that's what social media does these days. The bands can be in touch with their fans directly. They don't have to go through a record company anymore. They can see how many hits they're getting on YouTube. They can see how many people are reading their Facebook pages. They can see how many fans are retweeting their tweets. They can see how many favorites they have on Twitter. They can see how many people are looking at their Instagram photos or their Vine videos or whatnot. It's there. And more importantly, they can also see how many people are downloading their stuff off iTunes. It all comes back down to this. The artist can be in control of their destiny, of how their content is viewed. They can release 20 albums at 20 songs at one time, 30 songs, 50 songs, 100 songs, or just 6. They are in control. They are in control of their own destiny. They don't have to listen to a record label that says, no, you have to have 12, or you can only have 12. Or, well, let's just release 12, and then later on we'll release a second album, a best of hits, or a compilation, or an extended version, or whatnot, and then we'll do that. You can release what you like and make a lot of money off of it if you're smart, and that's the key. You have to be smart about it. You have to do your research. You have to learn what a lot of artists who've had to learn through hard experience have learned. The music labels are not in it for the artist. They're in it for themselves. They're in it to make money for themselves and not necessarily for you. Yeah, if you get they'll throw you some money because you're the content provider, but you don't own it. They do. In the way I described, you own the content, you push the content, you get more of the money, and that is a win for you. Folks, it's been great once again. Join us next time. Good night, good luck, and may the good news be yours. This has been a presentation of Rutherford Media Ventures, copyright 2013.